In Okinawa, Japan, where centenarians outnumber anywhere else on Earth, they have a word for what you're feeling when you wake up exhausted before the day even starts. You reach for the coffee, maybe a supplement, maybe two, and by 10 a.m. you are already running on borrowed energy, wondering why your body feels like it is fighting you instead of working with you. That feeling has a name in Japan, and more importantly, it has a fix. We are talking about 6 things, simple things, things that happen before breakfast, before your phone, before the world gets its hands on your morning. Things that cost nothing and that a 94-year-old woman in Okinawa, one of only 5 certified blue zones in the world, does without thinking twice because her grandmother did them and her grandmother's grandmother did them before that. None of them come in a bottle, and that is exactly the problem. For a $177 billion industry, this is what the Japanese morning actually looks like. Habit 1. Mezamashi, the waking. The first habit begins before you are even conscious. The Japanese concept of mezamashi, the natural waking, is not a preference. It is a discipline that predates the alarm clock by about 1,000 years. Here is what happens inside your body the moment a conventional alarm forces you awake in the middle of a sleep cycle. Your brain registers a threat. Cortisol spikes. Adrenaline releases. Your heart rate accelerates in a pattern almost identical to fear. You were not woken up. You were startled. This disrupts what researchers call the cortisol awakening response, or CAR, the natural healthy cortisol curve that should happen when you wake. Japanese physicians documented the consequences of this centuries before Western science had a name for it. Repeated forced arousal from deep sleep creates what they called accumulated morning fatigue, a chronic compounding exhaustion that no amount of caffeine fully corrects, because the problem is not tiredness. The problem is biological alarm. The energy drink industry in the United States generates over $21 billion a year. A significant portion of that market exists because Americans normalized a broken waking pattern. Not because their bodies need chemicals at 7 a.m., because their bodies were ambushed at 6. The practice of mezamashi means allowing sleep to complete its cycle. Sleep with the window open where possible. Let light shift the cycle naturally. Let the body surface instead of being dragged. You will not always have control over when you wake. But when you do, on weekends, on slow mornings, in retirement, in the years when it finally becomes possible, protect that natural window. The Japanese have protected it for centuries. Their cortisol profiles in the morning are measurably different from the American average, and that difference compounds over a lifetime. Habit 2. Migaki ha, the mouth. The second habit takes 90 seconds and requires no product. Migaki ha, dry brushing, before water, before paste, before anything enters your mouth. During sleep, bacteria multiply exponentially on the tongue, gum line, and tooth surfaces. That bacterial load is highest in the first moments of waking, before saliva production increases, and before the swallowing reflex clears the throat. The American dental industry, worth $8 billion annually, has spent decades teaching you that toothpaste is the active agent. The brush is just the delivery vehicle. But Japanese dental practice, recorded in Edo period manuscripts, identified the dry bristle itself as the primary tool for morning bacterial removal. Dry brushing before any liquid is introduced physically disrupts and removes the overnight bacterial accumulation before it enters the digestive tract. The paste comes after, if it comes at all before a meal. Habit 3, kosu mitsu, the water immediately after the brush. Before coffee, before juice, before anything else, kosu mizu. Warm water on an empty stomach, not cold, not room temperature. Warm as close to body temperature as you can manage. The Okinawa Centenarian Study, running since 1975 and tracking over 1,000 Japanese centenarians, identified warm water in the morning as one of the most consistent practices across the longest-lived populations on the planet. It is not mystical. The mechanism is direct. Warm water activates peristalsis, the muscular movement of the digestive tract, gently and immediately. It flushes overnight metabolic byproducts from the stomach lining, and critically, it helps regulate the cortisol curve of the morning, slowing the spike that cold water and caffeine both accelerate. The average American's morning begins with cold coffee, a phone screen, and a cortisol system already in distress from the alarm clock that fired an hour earlier. The Japanese morning begins with 10 ounces of warm water and silence. One of these patterns leads to $58 a month in supplements. The other is free. Habit 4. Hadaka no Taiyo, the sun. 10 minutes. That is all the fourth habit requires. Hadaka no Taiyo. Bare skin in the first light, not through a window, not filtered by SPF 50. Direct sunlight on exposed skin during the first hour of natural light. Your body synthesizes vitamin D through a photochemical process in the skin. That process requires UVB radiation. UVB radiation is blocked almost entirely by glass and significantly reduced by modern sunscreen at any meaningful SPF. The supplement industry sells vitamin D as though the human body cannot make it. Technically true, under modern American living conditions, indoors behind glass, covered in sunscreen, emerging only at midday under a direct summer sun that is actually too intense for efficient synthesis. The Japanese practice targets the morning window specifically because low-angle morning sun delivers UVB at an intensity the skin can absorb efficiently without overexposure. 10 minutes, arms and face at minimum. Done. That same 10 minutes of morning light also fires the single most powerful circadian signal your biology knows. Morning sunlight hitting the retina suppresses residual melatonin and sets the master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, for the full 24-hour cycle ahead. Your sleep quality that night is determined in significant part by whether your eyes receive direct morning light that morning. Melatonin supplements are a $700 million industry in the United States. The Japanese have never needed them. They went outside in the morning. Habit 5. Choshoku mei no shinkoku, the silence. The fifth habit is the one that the entire morning media industry, podcasts, news apps, motivational content, social media platforms, is quietly built around preventing. Choshoku mei no shinkoku, complete silence before breakfast. 10 to 15 minutes, no phone, no news, no conversation, no input of any kind. This is related to ikigai, the Japanese concept of having a reason for being. You cannot discover your purpose when your nervous system is already hijacked by external demands. Your cortisol and blood pressure are both at their most sensitive point of the day in the first 90 minutes after waking. Every external stressor introduced during that window hits harder than it would at noon. A difficult headline at 7 a.m. lands differently than the same headline at 2 p.m. Your nervous system is not being dramatic. It is being accurate. The morning window is genuinely more vulnerable than any other point in the day. The Japanese practice of morning silence is not passive. It is active biological protection. There is an entire industry of morning productivity content that generates revenue by filling this window, and most of it is doing quiet neurological damage by ending the silence before it does its work. 15 minutes of nothing. Before the phone. Before the headlines. Before the demands of anyone else's urgency enter your nervous system. Your blood pressure at 9 a.m. will tell the difference. Your cortisol curve at noon will tell the difference. Over 20 years, your cardiovascular age will tell the difference. The most radical thing you can do tomorrow morning is nothing. For 15 minutes, before breakfast, before anyone else knows you are awake. Habit 6. Reishiki Aruku. The walk. The sixth habit is the one that should make every company selling diabetes supplements deeply uncomfortable. Reishiki Aruku. Purposeful walking after eating. 10 minutes after breakfast. Not a workout. Not exercise as Americans understand it. A walk. This is the same philosophy behind Radio Taiso, Japan's national morning exercise broadcast that millions have performed since 1928. Simple movement, perfect timing. Japanese studies on type 2 diabetes prevention, conducted across multiple universities beginning in the 1990s and published in the Journal of Internal Medicine, consistently identified post-meal walking as more effective at regulating blood glucose than any single supplement category on the market. The mechanism is simple. Skeletal muscle contracting during movement pulls glucose out of the bloodstream directly, independent of insulin. It is the body's own regulation system doing exactly what it evolved to do. A 10-minute walk after breakfast reduces the post-meal glucose spike by measurable amounts that clinical researchers have compared favorably to low-dose metformin outcomes in pre-diabetic populations. Metformin is not a supplement, it is a prescription. But the principle stands. A billion-dollar intervention category exists in partial competition with a free 10-minute walk that most Americans have been too busy or too persuaded that busyness equals productivity to take. The Japanese did not run. They did not buy gym memberships or track macros or cycle between intermittent fasting windows. They walked after meals, got morning light, drank warm water, brushed dry, sat in silence, and let their sleep complete itself. 6 habits, 0 products, $0, and a population that consistently lives longer, has lower rates of cardiovascular disease, and takes fewer pharmaceutical interventions than any other industrialized country on Earth. These are not coincidences. They are consequences. The supplement industry did not suppress this knowledge through some dramatic act. They simply filled the shelf space first. They made the bottle more visible than the window. They sold urgency, and the morning silence had nothing to say back. Now you have something to say back. It starts tomorrow morning before the phone, before the coffee, before anyone else's agenda touches yours. Start with the water, just warm water, and everything else follows. You know what ties all 6 of these habits together? The Japanese understanding that the body already has what it needs, that the job is not to add more, it is to stop interfering. They applied that same thinking to everything: their homes, their fields, their fuel. Speaking of fuel, the next video is going to save you over $2,000 a year at the gas pump. A method Japanese farmers figured out in 1943 with nothing but rice straw and patience, free raw material, a $200 setup, and a federal permit that takes 20 minutes to get online. Your gas bill is not a fixed cost. It never was. That video is already on your screen. Go watch it.